Have you heard the story about the franchise that was so beloved by its fans because it was new and innovative to its genre? It had new ideas and unique characters that drove the plot in cool and interesting ways, met by a fierce antagonist that became the icon of the series. It was talked about and loved just about by everyone. Over time, though, the franchise began to change. Big companies started getting their fingers in it. It quickly stopped being about cool characters and an interesting world, and instead became more about the political messages that the creator wanted to force down the throats of their beloved audience.
Yes, yes.
Soon, the fans got really divided. Some of them wanted to ignore the changes, and just pretend that it was the same old franchise that they had loved for so many years. Some hated it, and wanted things to go back to the way they were. And others, who weren't even fans in the first place, really liked what was happening and called anyone who disagreed with them a bunch of racist, sexist pigs who didn't deserve the franchise to begin with.
A considerable margin, and
And it's all become so convoluted and broken that by the end we're all arguing about a heap of trash that should have been thrown away and forgotten, like my girlfriend's last abortion. Anyway, let's talk about why The Boys sucks now. Number 1. The plot is just a bunch of side quests. Season 4 doesn't have a fucking story. It's just a bunch of things happening with most characters dealing with some part of their backstory, which makes it all feel like the writers are just trying to bide their time until Season 5. When any story starts, there's a few things that are established. For example, what the characters' goals are. This is a pretty simple step when writing any screenplay. It helps the audience understand what the characters are driving towards and why they make sacrifices and push themselves into extreme situations. For example, we know that Butcher wants to get Ryan away from Homelander. By doing this, he'll keep his promise to the woman he loved, and in a way, redeem himself for all the bad choices he's made. But what is everyone else trying to do? In the opening scene, we see that the boys are trying to kill Newman because she's the vice president and they don't want a soup running the country. That makes sense. So you'd think that the season would be dedicated to them trying to take her down, right? No, not really. MM is berated for failing the mission, but is not given any direct orders on what to do next. This is the kind of scene where someone like the president gives the main characters a lead or starts them on a new path so they can try again.
Perhaps later.
Or maybe MM would come up with the plan himself, which would establish that he's now the new leader of the boys.
She's a powerful leader. She's a powerful leader.
But there is no scene where the characters just sit down and discuss what their overall mission is. The characters just wander around without direction. Frenchie is sad because of his complicated gay romance. Kimiko just decides to go after her old terrorist organization. Huey's dad has a stroke randomly. Starlight has started some kind of activist group. Does she run a homeless shelter? I can't remember, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. All of these things have nothing to do with the main plot, and all of the characters are just in a constant state of treading water where they neither grow or move forward in the story. When they finally do run into Newman again, it's not even clear what they're trying to accomplish. They are literally face to face with the woman that the President of the United States has ordered them to kill, and they don't even make an attempt. I know she's really powerful, but why doesn't Kimiko just snap her neck when they're on one of these long, thoughtful walks? At least Starlight sucker punches her. There's even a scene in episode 4 where the president asks Starlight if they had found a way to kill Newman, and she just shakes her Barbie doll head. Of course they haven't found a way to kill Newman. They haven't been looking. Because all the main characters are so focused on different things, none of them are working towards the same goal. Like when Huey and Kimiko meet with A-Train to get a vial of Compound V. Now it's clear that Huey's goal is to get the Compound V in order to save his father from dying. But why is Kimiko there? She has no connection to this story, and she doesn't become part of it later on either. She argues with Huey a little bit about using the Compound V, but never tries to stop him, and she never successfully changes his outlook on the situation. You could put any member of the team in her place and it would not have changed how the scene went. The only reason Kimiko is actually there is so the writers can have a shootout in the place of any real character development. It is also pretty hollow when you realize that in turn, Huey doesn't have anything to do with Kimiko's story with Shining Light. Having two separate stories converge in one scene doesn't make them come together. It just feels awkward and misplaced. I mean, this whole scene genuinely feels like a side quest, and not a fun one, like one of those cargo container missions from GTA.
I'm here. What do I do?
The red containers below need to go on the trucks at the end. Grab them, move them, put them down. First, you gotta line up the cabin over the container. First up,
keep getting
position the
away with
cabin
it.
over a container.
Ultimately, neither of these stories have any impact on each other after this scene. Kimiko doesn't meet with A-Train again. Huey does it alone. And Huey doesn't help Kimiko with Shining Light. So neither of these stories have anything to do with each other or the main plot of the show. It's all just happening. Wouldn't it have made more sense if Frenchie was with Kimiko and they fought Shining Light again? At least their stories have been somewhat connected before. Or how about in order to hurt Kimiko, the Shining Light follow her and realize that she has a close relationship with Frenchie. So they kidnap him and his boyfriend in order to lure Kimiko out to save them. Instead of Frenchie giving himself up to the police, they have to stop Shining Light together. This would both tighten up the storylines and have more characters working together instead of this. See, The Boys has a Stranger Things problem. And I'm not talking about unnatural levels of homosexuality in the 1980s. I'm talking about a bloated cast that results in this treading water and melodrama I've been complaining so much about. See, the problem with too many characters is that the writers have to give them something to do. If the writers don't do that, then the audience will start to wonder what their purpose is in the story. Now, after 4 seasons, can you tell me how many main characters have died in The Boys? Fucking Swatto made the list? Jesus Christ. The only 3 people in this list that could be considered main characters are Becca Butcher, Stormfront, and Black Noir. For a show about facing the dangers of a world run by evil superheroes, nobody ever dies. The Fast and Furious franchise kills more characters off than this show does. You know, this is just my opinion, but I can think of a couple characters that could be written off.
Yeah.
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 And why not? Wouldn't a lot of these problems be solved if you cut down on a lot of these storylines? Look how many plots are going on. Butcher, trying to save Ryan. Huey, trying to save his father. Frenchie, gay romance. Kimiko, going after Shining Light. Homelander, trying to take over the world / confronting his past. Starlight, leading a political movement, dealing with the backlash of getting plastic surgery. MM, failing to lead the boys. A-Train, trying to redeem himself? Jesus Christ. This doesn't include characters like Ashley, or The Deep, or Newman, or Sister Sage, or Firecracker, who all have their own shit going on. Point is that there's too much happening. This isn't Game of Thrones. While it's okay for characters to have their own dilemmas, it shouldn't take away from the larger story that the writers are trying to tell. But as we've already gone over, there isn't a story. Every episode is just an amalgamation of random events that has nothing to do with each other.
Right, yeah. Of course.
But having a large cast doesn't need to be a problem, especially if you know how to write them. It's often quite enjoyable. The issue is that if your characters have no clear direction or goals, it's all going to look like one big mess. Look at Infinity War, for example. It has more characters and less time to complete the story, but does so wonderfully. Characters that have no connection with each other are brought together under one main storyline that is pretty simple. Let's look at the characters in Infinity War and compare their goals to The Boys. Iron Man wants to stop Thanos from getting the stones so he can save the universe. Spider-Man wants to stop Thanos from getting the stones so he can save the universe. Captain America wants to stop Thanos from getting the stones so he can save the universe. Thor wants to get revenge on Thanos, but also stopping him from getting the stones so he can save the universe. Gamora wants to kill her father so he doesn't get the stones, and that will save the universe. I could go on, but I think you're starting to catch my drift. Even when a character has a different reason for stopping Thanos, their goal is ultimately the same. This helps with story flow because the audience doesn't have to stop to question why any of the characters are trying to do something. It's to stop Thanos from getting the stones. Okay, we get it. A lot of these problems in The Boys would be fixed if everyone decided that they're going to kill Homelander. Really, the first scene of the season should have been about the boys learning about Homelander's plan for world domination. They'd be listening in and learning when he reveals it to the Seven, and they'd be aware of what's going on. Now they have to rush to find a way to kill Homelander before he completes his plan. They then discover the soup-killing virus, and then the whole season would be about them trying to get their hands on it. So instead of having this stupid assassination attempt on Newman, the season starts with really high stakes and clear motivations for all the characters. Everyone is invested and works together because this time the whole world is at stake. And this whole storyline would be much more compelling and concise than what we have now. Because right now, it feels like the writers have just pitched some ideas and they made it their final draft of the script.
Oh God, I sound like a jackass. Who approved this script? It's fucking unprofessional!
Please subscribe so I don't lose the will to live before I finish part 2.
Fuck you.